Okay, so yesterday I came home from vacation and I got into a package of Goldfinch whistles from Poland, and I am so impressed with these whistles. And I decided to highlight one of my favorites by doing an Alto G whistle comparison. So there's no markings on these whistles that show what key they are. So I actually wrote down. You probably can't see that, but there's a little blue. I just took a colored pencil and wrote a G on the bottom so I can tell them apart. But when I was playing these, this one was so nice that I actually thought it was an F whistle because I tend to like the way F whistles play, and I tend to hate the way G whistles play. For some reason, F is for favorite and G is for g or something, some equivalent of that. So when I played this one, I thought, oh, this must be the F because it just sang, I guess, and it turned out to be the G. So I'm pretty thrilled about that because G and I have not gotten along traditionally, so it's just been a kind of a weird key for me. So I don't know if it's just the diameter of this is about perfect for it, but anyway. So I've got my Goldfinch G, I've got a Carbony G, which is also very good, but it's more of a high whistle. I've got my Reviol G, or my Reviol Alto head with the G body on it. Got a Shearwater G, and a Tony Dixon G. So, and each one has their own characteristic that I like. So I'll start out with the Goldfinch. So. Just smooth, and it's powerful on the bottom. So, this one again. Everyone has their own personal preferences, but to me, I've always been looking for a low whistle an alto G that feels like a low whistle, that has kind of that full, robust sound, uh, and this, I don't know, it just checks off a lot of boxes for me. So here's my Carbony G, and again, this is an excellent whistle, but it's always felt more like a high whistle to me, which some people like. I've heard people specifically say, I like the Carbony whistles because they play more like high whistles. So it's just kind of in what you like. This one requires a little bit more. It's a little bit more, has more back pressure. So here's the Carbony. Again, this is a snappy whistle, and you'll notice I'm playing this one with my fingertips. This one I'm playing with a piper's grip. I can play it with my fingertips, but the stretch is uncomfortable. So this one, I tend to play low F with with a piper's grip, and the G kind of varies depending on the G. But this one is definitely a piper's grip, and I've noticed that is seems to be true of a lot of the lower whistles, that they are like the E flat. Or I check the E flat against my MK low D, and the Goldfinch E flat hole spacing is actually a little bit larger than the MK. So if you have smaller hands and you're looking for a low D, I would ask Goldfinch whistles if they do any sort of customization to bring those holes in, because that is something I'm not concerned because I have big hands, but if you have small hands, that might be an issue. But definitely it's a larger hole spacing than some, or definitely in the Carbony. Carbony has pretty small grip. So here's another one. This is my Reviol, and let me see if they're, make sure they're so this one has even well, it's funny because the holes are spaced farther apart on the bottom, but on the top they're not. They're closer, but they're larger holes. So you can see the kind of the difference between the two holes. Well, I guess the Reviol's Reviol's shorter spacing, so but larger holes. I like the rich sound of the Reviol a lot. So this one, it's always struck me as being a little bit more challenging to play than some of my other whistles, but I just love the tone on it. It's one of those, and normally I'll treat, it's been a while since I've done this, but I'll treat the Winway with like a rinse aid like Jet Dry, or I'd treat it with like dish soap or something, because it does have a tendency to clog, but So you can hear, and it's every whistle. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but that one is just it. You gotta you gotta play with it, and you gotta learn how to play it in order to get the best out of it. So I think it's a great whistle. It's just it is harder to play. So. So like the Reviol is like the ultimate low whistle, low G whistle, or low alto whistle. So the Carbony is super easy to play. So that I think that's kind of the balance that you get between like a wide bore and a narrow bore whistle. The narrow bores tend to play easier than the wide bores. The wide bores take more careful breathing. You have to push them hard enough in the second octave in certain places, otherwise they'll drop back down. But they can be really rewarding because they can give you this big full sound. And that's something that I've talked to Rob Gandara about, or Rob Gondra about maybe, and he's made some of these, and I've never gotten to play one, but he's made a wide bore alto G, or mezzo G, he calls these mezzos, wide bore mezzo Gs that probably have a bit more fullness on the bottom end, and probably a little bit harder to play on the top. But Carbony whistles just don't have a really robust sound. That's not really their defining characteristic. But great whistle. But I feel like the Goldfinch is kind of like a nice. It backs off of the worst of the wideboard characteristics from the Reviol, and Maurice Reviol actually uses an alto head. He's got an alto head, and he's got a tenor head, or the low D head, and the alto head goes from A, G, F, and E, and so it's one head for all four of those bodies. And the low head goes from E flat, which is one of my favorite whistles, E flat to low D, D flat, and C. And so he's basically got two sizes, and some of those whistles are a bit like the A is tough to play. Like as you go down the from high, A is a very, very wide bore, huge sound, but kind of tough to play. And the G is a little bit easier, the F is easier, and then by the time you get to the E, it's a little bit touchy on the bottom end because it's a very narrow bore E. And I'll play that one when I get to my E comparison. Anyway, so here's the Shearwater. Shearwaters were some of my first low D whistles ever. I think it was my first. No, it was my second low D. So the Shearwater G. So the Shearwater G is you can hear that it's a totally different sound, and these are actually very similar in price range. So I was excited to find Goldfinch whistles because they are. I think this one was probably, I want to say it was like $65 maybe. I know their low D is 85 currently, and the high D was like 50. So I think the altos were kind of in the middle. But listen, I mean, versus. So a very different sound. The Shearwater's breathy sound is a big open sound, whereas the Goldfinch whistles are all extremely focused. And then here's and they're both good whistles in their own way, and it kind of just depends on the sound you like. Some might even say that the Goldfinch whistles are a little bit nasally. And they might not like that in particular. So here's the Dixon, and this one I play with my fingertips, and I think the Shearwater I think I played with my Piper script. Trouble on this one. Like maybe it needs a retreatment of the jet dry. This is another one that is a little bit more difficult to play. The breath requirements are kind of tricky on it, but it's got a really interesting, delicate tone. See. again, this is one I haven't played it in a while, so it's like getting familiar with. But it's got a very, I described it almost like a ceramic hardness to the tone. So just a very, it's got like some buzzing stuff going on, and again, it may just be because I need to retreat the wind way, but it is not. This one is prone to clogging, but again, just. So I can't remember the tune well enough to play it, but you can just hear how the I'm not thinking about how hard to blow it. I'm not thinking about like breath requirements. I'm just able to play on this whistle. So I am just extremely impressed with this whistle. And like I said, it's not that these other ones aren't really good as well. So this thing just plays like butter. So there you go. That's Goldfinch Alto G, and it is probably, like I said, I'm of any Alto G I've ever played, I think this is probably, again, for my personal taste, and what I've been looking for in an Alto G, I think this is my perfect Alto G whistle. So, well done, Goldfinch. You've made me very happy.